All right. Well, Greg Payton, man, it's super good to have you on here. It's been a long time since we talked, and very excited. We got a chance to work with you previously in your career, a few iterations back, and so I'm excited to jump in now that you're with Pivot Bio and talk intention with you here today. So, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Very good, Mark. Yeah, I'm excited to be part of your podcast here and reflecting back on our time together earlier. What you've been able to provide for me is a thought process to how do I approach my day.
Mm.
And I utilize that thought process every day as to what am I doing and what am I going to achieve as a result of my actions for the day.
Wonderful. Well, that sounds intentional. So I like it. So, Greg, opening question everybody gets is so what does it mean for you to be intentional?
I reflect on that, Mark, and when you think about the word, of course, you can go to the Webster Dictionary and find out what the definition of intentional is. But as I think about being intentional, the actions that I take, are they a reaction to an event that I am anticipating or currently incurring? And my actions are not focused on a specific outcome, or have I intentionally identified the path that I'm going to take? And as a result, what are the action steps that I need to take to succeed? And that's where I think about it. Intentional is planning forward as to what our outcomes are supposed to be, or what we plan on, what the outcome should be, and what action steps are we taking to achieve the results that we're desiring or striving for. So specifically for me, that is an intentional thought process, an intentional action. It doesn't just happen. You have to make a concerted effort to be focused and identifying here's what we need to do, and as a result, these are the outcomes that we have in our plan to achieve. However, we need to know that all best plans may not be the best plan. And we need to be able to react with specific intentions of what's plan B, what's plan C.
Mhm. Yeah. When you talk about, it doesn't just happen. This is one of the things that I'm trying to help people understand, leaders understand around what it means to be intentional. Because a lot of people talk a good game. When I have conversations with people about being intentional, nobody ever says it's a bad idea.
Right, right.
Right. But it's very hard to execute on, right? And I think that's the big challenge. So I'm glad to hear that you've got some very intentional things that you're doing to start your day, and I love the definition. I think it fits right in. So Greg, at Pivot Bio, what are some things you guys are doing to be intentional about attracting, retaining? You're a high growth startup, and so it's maybe a little bit different space than folks I've talked to in a traditional co-op or independent retailer, or one of your big three companies. So what does intention look like in creating that culture there for you guys right now?
Good question, Mark. So one thing that we think about is when we look at our product that we're bringing to the marketplace and how we're bringing our product to the marketplace, we're being disruptive in the industry. And that creates some angst among some individuals that have been, what I would say, with the ag industry for several years. If we're bringing them on board and we want them to participate with us either as an agronomist or as a sales rep, or as an employee of Pivot Bio, what do we need to help them to overcome in their thought process of how they're going to approach positioning our product with producers or with reps in the industry? So, in order for us to achieve success and hire the individuals that are the high performers, we have to lay out our strategy. Here's where we've been. Here's what we've achieved. How did we get from point A to point B to point C? But more importantly, lay clearly in front of them, here's what our expectations are, and how are we going to achieve those expectations based upon our current path. And more importantly, when we work with the high performers that we're bringing into the marketplace from many different industries, they've had success in their previous life. And how do we utilize their success and what helped them to become successful and adapt that into our current model, maybe make some adaptations to it, but with the idea that we don't have all the answers. We have a lot of people in the industry that have the answers, and how do we allow them to incorporate their ideas? So we are a very open company in regards to communications, whether
Mm,
it's the CEO all the way down to the sales rep. That's the most important person on our team. If you've got an idea, bring it to someone's attention, and we will talk about it. So what that creates, Mark, is a very open culture of I've got an idea. I don't know if it will work, but let's ask someone to see what they think about it. And there's never a wrong answer.
mm,
And we'll adapt that into if we deem that that seems like a viable process, we'll make those changes and adapt. And that creates from an employee perspective an opportunity to this is different than where I came from, my previous life.
yeah.
I feel like I'm being heard now instead of being lost in a culture that says they listen, but they don't
Hmm.
because they've got have their preconceived ideas as to how the solution should come about.
Yeah, that definitely takes a lot of intention to curate a culture within which that actually can be true. I know a lot of people talk that game, and all opinions are valued, right? Until your opinion is different than mine.
Right, right.
So,
Yeah.
do you find people a little bit gun shy to open up and kind of share in the beginning? And how do you guys address that?
Oh, absolutely. It's like debriefing an individual. If you have been with in an industry for several years, which we have several of our employees that have been on board in various capacities, and they've been adapted to the culture of their prior lives, and they come to our culture, and I'll get phone calls from them after we have a conference call, and they'll say, "We can really talk like this with we can actually voice our opinion without fear of repercussion." I said,
Mhm.
absolutely. I said, this is an opportunity for you if you've got an idea, voice your opinion, but more importantly, have a solution if you have an issue or concern about what seems to be a problem that you observe. That allows the individuals that can make the decisions to recognize your talent. You put some thought to it. It's not just a bitch session. You're actually providing and thinking about solutions. So when you have employees that have been for 5, 10, 15 years in another industry, it's a breath of fresh air. Mark, another thought too is when we have new employees fresh out of college, which we have a fair segment of our employees that are fresh out of college, they don't know what they don't know. They've been used to the structure at an institution where you have a defined path to go forward and you follow what the professor advocates for you to do to achieve your A or B or C or whatever grade or outcome you want from that class. So they're waiting for someone to direct them, almost to give them permission. Can I
Mm,
do this?
mhm.
Well, as we lay out our objectives, which are clearly defined, and it goes back to intentional, we want to be sure that the individuals that work with us in our company know what our KPIs are and expectations are. If you have a different path in your mind, share that, and that will allow us to become better. Because, as I said earlier, we don't have all the answers. And I really embrace individuals coming fresh out of college because they have new ideas, new approaches. We
Mhm.
may have seen it in the past, but it might have a little different color to it than what we saw in the past. Let's embrace that and resurrect that as another opportunity to
Yeah,
learn more how do we approach our clients.
right. And Greg, as you talk about that, my mind starts going to right the how to, right, the how to just a little bit, because I can imagine somebody driving down the road right now listening to this, and they're thinking, okay, well that all sounds good, but what if it's a bad idea? And I've had a lot. I have a new idea about every 5 minutes, Greg, of something I can do for my business or ways to help people or whatever. They're not all good ideas, and I certainly don't have time to execute on all of them. But I think that, but you know, if I think about intentional leadership, like I also have to honor what somebody is bringing up if that's the culture. Like, so I can't say, hey, that's a stupid idea, just outright, right? I have to let them be heard,
Right.
but also maybe we don't continue with the bad idea. So
Sure.
I would just be curious on your take. I mean, whether over the years or how you do it now, how do you how do you kind of help somebody, you know, not feel like an outsider or like it was a bad idea, but still, how do you be diplomatic?
That's a good question, Mark. So as I approach it over the years of my experiences working with many different types of sales individuals, whether it's direct sales to the grower or working with vice presidents with their specific issues or concerns that they have in their sales approach, there's been a lot of opportunities for me to hear a lot of ideas. And I've been blessed with the ability to sit back and put myself in that individual's shoes and identify why would they be asking this question? What are they seeing that someone else can't see? So I'll listen and gain a better understanding and ask a few more questions regarding, tell me more about why you think that way. Tell me what some possible solutions are. What are the probable outcomes of the different type of solutions that we offer, and are they beneficial than what our current status quo process is? And I'll say, let's use in the old dairy vernacular, let's ruminate on this for a while, for a day or two, and think about it. Let's connect again in 24 or 48 hours and revisit. You've had time to think about it. I've had time to think about it, and I can advance it forward. I currently in a position where I get a lot of requests for ideas to get presented to our executive leadership team. I was actually with our CEO all day yesterday and had a good opportunity to talk. And with Chris, the blessing that we have with him as our new CEO is that he said, I want to hear everything. I don't want you to sugarcoat anything. And everything's open for conversation and discussion. There's no bad idea. And that is a breath of fresh air when we have our senior leadership that are embracing the opportunity for people that are in the field to really address the concerns that they're seeing, and more importantly, what are some possible solutions? And that's the approach I take too, Mark. So as an individual, whether you're a seasoned veteran, they kind of use me as the well, I'll be kind of, this is kind of silly how it sounds, but they think I might be expendable when I'm okay with that because I can ask for forgiveness, and and that's okay with that. I've been doing this for quite a few years. I know how to approach the conversation, and I'm not afraid to have a strong point supporting the decisions that we want to recommend. Because if you don't bring your thoughts forward, they will never get heard. And if you get shot down, so be it. That gives me the desire. I need to brush that proposal up again. Obviously, I didn't communicate effectively what my expectations or intentions were or the outcome, or maybe it was the wrong time. Maybe when I approached it, there was some other things going on that were more important. Don't throw it away. Don't put it on the bookshelf. Keep it on the burner and find the opportunity to freshen it up again and represent itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, so I'm hearing kind of three themes as you talk about that, Greg. And the first one is having a process, right? So just understanding, like, hey, there's a lot of ideas potentially coming from a number of different angles every day. Like, hey, here's the process. So look, cool. We're gonna let that sit, right, or let you think about it a little bit more. Let's ruminate, like you to use your word, right, for a couple days or a week or whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
I, by the way, I have a huge rumination list that's still sitting because there's some bad ideas.
Yeah, yeah,
Or maybe they're not bad ideas. They were good at the time. They're just, you know, not the right ones to be executing on right now. Right.
correct. And can I build on that a second,
Yeah.
Mark,
Yeah. Go
too?
ahead.
So when the individual is thinking about presenting an idea to someone, find the individual that you have full trust in and they have trust
Mm,
in you, that you know that you can sit down and have a confidential conversation if it's a confidential topic and provide your input or solutions. knowing that they will have your best interests at heart when they move forward with presenting that idea or solution. Because there are a lot of individuals that are not willing to move forward with an idea for fear of, oh, it might put a little black mark by my name because I
Mm-hmm.
brought up this idea that wasn't perceived as being a very good idea. If you aren't confident to carry that message, find someone that will do that for you. There are people in your businesses or in your life that can be that person that'll say, I got your back. You
Yeah.
got a great idea, or let's talk more about it. I have your back. I'll take it to the people that need to hear this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it reminds me, of like the Gallup engagement survey where they ask one of the 11 questions or whatever it is. They ask one of the questions, do you have a friend at work?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And a lot of people say, no, I don't have any friends at work. And then they start to blame the culture at work. And I get that, right? Like, oh, there's nobody at work that I like. Well, go make a friend. Like, how hard have you worked?
Right.
Who have you asked to lunch lately, right? Who have you gone and got a drink with lately, right? I mean, are you really working at that? But that comes back to your point around having someone to bounce the idea off of, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just having someone at work, you're like, hey, that's one thinking about. Like, what do you think? Like, shoot some holes in this, and or give me some feedback, give me some input. I want to bring this to the CEO, but I want to, I want to run it by you first. I
Right.
think it's a great suggestion, right? To have somebody in the workspace that that can be that for you. And if you're an employee listening to this, I guess I would implore you to take a look at, are you doing the work to build intentional relationships at work, and really, be, if not friends, at least allies with people, right? To be able to
Right.
do that, and cool. Like, let's have a dumb idea session, just spitball. There's some great things that come out of that.
Right. Right. Right.
Right, sometimes. So anyway, I think that's great advice. She talked about, right, having a process, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, being willing to kind of put yourself out there, but then also, like, what if you do get shot down? What if it doesn't get adopted right away? Rather than look at that as rejection, right? I can also flip that around, the exact same scenario, and shift the perspective and say, okay, I've got another opportunity to go do more research,
Mm-hmm.
think about it some more, and come back with a better pitch.
Correct. Correct.
I think the very first program I ran, I mean, you'll remember, it was called the Millennial Mastermind. This is one of the first things that you guys bought at UFC.
Mm-hmm.
And the very first time I ran it was 9 years ago this week, as we record this in the third week of September. And I asked between Facebook and LinkedIn messengers, I sent 2,000 messages, Greg, and 6 people showed up.
Wow. Oh.
And I think I had to do 2-for-1s on 4 of them. So, so we weren't making a lot of revenue, but I didn't have the idea fully proven yet, right? The
Mm-hmm.
concept was new to the ag industry at the time. Nobody was doing a 2-day deep dive just for young people like that. Excuse me. And then following that up with a coaching program that was new, right?
Right. Right. When you think about rejection, and we have to embrace that, that will occur. And I
Mm-hmm.
always reflect back to the eighth grade dance that you were at, and you went across the gym floor to ask the girl to dance, and you got rejected. Did that stop you from asking another girl to dance again? Probably not. And so you take those times of rejection as a reflection, as you said,
Mm-hmm.
and then become more specific about identifying. Let's revisit my proposal, my RFP that I created because I thought it was a great idea,
Mm-hmm.
and let's see what holes were shot in it, and were they valid, or were they based upon lack of information? Which in sales, if you get a no, it's not that the customer really doesn't want to say no. You just haven't given them enough information to help them make an intelligent decision on the buying
Or I
decision.
just haven't positioned my value well enough yet.
Correct, correct.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, yeah, the second point of following through after you sit down and ruminate on your idea and you propose it. That's probably the most important step you can take. what are you going to do next?
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to go back and never bring that topic up again? Or are you going to be intentional about making some decisions as to how do I address it and find the individuals that you need to focus with to help make it a better proposal if it's a sound proposal?
Yeah. I was just having a conversation with a coaching client this morning who's, frustrated trying to get into a couple of retail accounts. And so we were talking through, well, what are we doing? Well, we're doing the things like I'm looking at the notes, right here. Well, we try to position products that they're not using currently, try to give them a leg up in the marketplace, or private label things, or just look for that opening, provide education. Okay. So that's one dimension. That's what a salesperson in your type of job ought to do.
Mm-hmm.
Great. But show me the relationship map of your client. Do you have a relationship with the CEO, or are you only focusing on the location managers? Right. Who else? Right. Who else should we be looking at? And so, and then what else? Are you putting yourself out there on social media? Are you making the Snapchats? I have learned, Greg, so much this summer from several particular agronomists who I follow on Snapchat, who are posting content daily of everything that's going on at the different growth stages, what they're doing, how they're addressing it, how they're addressing the weather stress, and all these different things. It's like I have 19 credits in agronomy from the University of Minnesota. I have learned more from Snapchat, from people who know things about this stuff just over social media this summer. So my point being, there are so many other avenues, right, to be intentional about your idea, to if you believe in what it is, right, there's a lot of different ways to go about getting it out there. And just because we hear no one time, just because we're getting rejected one area, doesn't mean we'll get rejected in another area, right? It's that's part of the proving process. But I want to come back to something, Greg, that was important, that sort of, in my mind at least, spurred this part of our conversation, which we have a lot of young people, right? We like those young people coming out of university with new ideas, and that generation has had every moment of their life planned since they were a baby, right?
Yeah,
They have
correct.
been given constant feedback, encouragement, and they've grown up with social media. So there's been another layer or layers of engagement over the years as well. So as employers, you now have to be that next level of intention. Excuse
Mm-hmm.
me, that next level of intention in their life, right? I mean, that next level of parenting, kind of, in a way, not really parenting, but you're definitely leading them. And I think there's an intentional piece. So I was glad that you mentioned that. And I was wondering if that brings up any unique challenges in your business, or if there's anything that you guys are doing to help really harness that next generation employee.
Valid points, Mark. When I think about where we are at is from a messaging or communication perspective with our clients, or even with ourselves as peers or individuals. When I first started in the ag industry, it was the old payphone, or that was about the only way you could call someone, reach them
Right.
at the house and leave a voicemail. If they had well, they didn't have voicemail, they had the little machine that recorded the message.
Maybe an answering machine, right? Otherwise, you
Maybe,
just
maybe,
missed
maybe
it.
so. You sent a postcard or you dropped them a letter. And now the volume of communication styles that are out there can be overwhelming, not only for the individuals that are used to all of the social media, more importantly, the customers that we're connecting with, or the peers that you're working with, may not be adapted or used to the type of social communication that you as a young individual are very accustomed to. It's this phone that we have is a blessing and a curse. It can consume your day, or it can be the most effective tool that a person could really have in
Mhm.
communicating to your customers. How I approach it with individuals is, as an example, Mark, you may prefer to use Snapchat as your primary source of communication.
Mhm.
Is that the preferred source of communication that the individual uses that you're trying to develop a relationship with? If
Mhm.
it is, that's probably an easier path. But if it's not, I need to identify, how does Joe like to communicate? Is he a text guy? Maybe he just likes to text message. Maybe he's an individual that I need to give him a phone call. Met with an individual yesterday, and the rep that was with me asked me or asked him, Paul, how do you prefer to be communicated with? He said, just give me a call. He said, I don't respond to emails. I get too many emails. Just call me. I'll pick
Mhm.
it up or leave a voicemail. And that's my experience with Paul as well too. If he doesn't pick up, you leave a voicemail or send him a text message and say, hey, Paul, give me a quick call back when you have a minute, and he'll respond right away. And I think as we think about working with young individuals just entering the business, don't assume that your clients use your preferred method of communication. And you said something earlier that resonates well with me is the intentional aspect of networking or developing friendships.
Mhm.
You have to be intentional yourself about identifying who you need to be networking with. Then how do you go about creating that relationship? And it's not a one-time instant message to them, hey, let's be friends on LinkedIn, or hey, let's be friends on Instagram or on Snapchat. That may open the door, maybe not. It's pretty easy to reject those if they have no idea who you are, but be persistent and find out the process that you need to incorporate into your style to allow them to go, wait a minute, that individual seems to have a lot of information that I want to learn more about. I should connect with them, and
Mhm.
then I could learn more about what's going on in their world.
Yeah. Do you guys have a particular platform that's adopted by the company where it's just, hey, everybody uses this? Or is it just email or phone or what's the,
Internally, we use Slack.
yeah, yeah.
So that's our primary internal source of communication. And for me, that the Slack was like, I've never used it before. So like,
Mhm.
okay, so I have email, text messaging, Slack, Instagram, LinkedIn, but consistent communication, Slack, I found works well because it saves the messaging and you can go back and see
Mhm.
the thread fairly easily, and when you're communicating with other peers in the company.
Mhm. I like that as a and as an intentional tool, really, because it gives us the ability to create specific threads around each client if we want, or each product if we want.
Mm-hmm.
Um, really cool book I read years ago, written by an acquaintance of mine named Keith Ferrazzi. He's written several books, but he wrote a book called Leading Without Authority that I would recommend people read. And this the idea behind leading without authority is that in the future world of work, which we're now in post 2021, is a world where teams will scale up and scale down based on interest and merit. So as we have a new product launch, well, why not spread that out across the organization and see, hey, who's really passionate or interested about this particular kind of product because you grew up around it or there's something about it that you think is cool, and so you get invited then to the Slack channel on that, and you can start to contribute your ideas, be on a special committee to help with marketing and review things. Maybe it's not your primary thing, maybe it's not exactly what you get paid to do, but it gives you the opportunity to express merit and build relationship capital within the organization by being a contributor on something outside of what your day to day is.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea is that over time, organizations and teams will scale up and scale down based on the demand or need for talent. So it's a new way of looking at how we can attract talent where almost everybody becomes a free agent over time. And that's a bit to the extreme end of it.
Mm-hmm.
But you can do that within any organization, especially using good, like a good solid technology platform. I've been recommending to a lot of companies lately, like to have something, whether it be Slack or something inside of Teams. And I'll just share a quick a quick example. We did a project. We had 24 merchandisers go through our 2 day training, and then we did a 6 months coaching with some additional training in the middle. And this they are segregated across different geographies. These people don't, and they're young people inside, mostly in their 20s, not entirely, but mostly. They don't otherwise get to know each other. They all work at different locations buying grain and different commodities from different aspects of the ag industry. And so this was their first time really getting to know each other. And so we created the communication platform within which now they can idea share.
Okay.
And this was not happening before. right? And you think this is a fairly large organization, and they have the software, but they weren't in the habit of communicating and idea sharing. And we've done that successfully in a number of different organizations, get them talking and actually sharing ideas instead of just what happens for most of us is we feel like we're on an island screwing this all up so badly that nobody could possibly ever have done this as badly as me. That's the story that people adopt, right?
Right, right.
And the reality is, like, at the same time, somebody's doing it at least as bad as you, if not worse. Like, hey, let's at least get together and commiserate.
Correct. Well, I like that idea too, Mark. So when we think about pre-pandemic, we had more social interaction, we had more team
Yeah.
meetings, the camaraderie and the relationships had been developed. Post-pandemic, after being sequestered in your home for 2 years, you
Mm-hmm.
be, people became accustomed to not reaching out, not communicating. The Zoom
Yeah.
calls were, yeah, they were able to achieve the communication of what steps we need to take. However, you didn't have that social interaction. So I would encourage individuals as we're moving forward now and being more diverse in our office structure to find individuals, find a space where you can connect, whether it's through a common chat group or whether it's in person. Of course, with companies being people being spread across the country, meeting in person is not as convenient. But at
Mm-hmm.
least have a specific time set up once a month or whatever the time frame it might be to share ideas. To your point, in a
Yeah,
common thread
for
and,
sure.
and with different time zones too, using a social media platform or communication platform similar to Slack would
Mm-hmm.
allow that message to you read it whenever you are able to read the message,
Yeah.
and that works well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't work a 9 to 5 job. I might be up at 3 in the morning and have an idea, and I can share it and not worry about, okay, sending a text message. They might get a ding on their phone and they don't like that. But if it's through a Slack communication, they can read that whenever they're able to read that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, Greg, we could riff on this, I think, all day, and keep going. So I appreciate, man, your insights and inputs. I think you've got a great grasp on how leaders can. And if I was a leader listening to this, one of the things that I would steal is, the openness around ideas. Are you actually curating a place within which people feel safe, psychologically safe to share stuff?
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't want people to get triggered by the word psychologically safe. Like, you as a leader, I believe, have a moral obligation to create a workspace within which people feel empowered to thrive, have the capability to thrive. That's what we stand for. So that's part of what I think is great about what you said, like creating that space within which people can have ideas, bring those ideas, have a bad idea. That's okay. But
Mm-hmm.
this is the place where we share.
Correct.
So
Correct.
that's good. And then the process coming on the backside of that from, just thinking through how you go about it, that was also great. So, Greg, real quick, is there a book that you think somebody should be reading? I was curious about that. Do you have any books, resources, podcasts, things that you listen to that people ought to be taking in?
There's several resources that I utilize, Mark, and I'm going to focus on just a couple here. So I'm an avid reader, so I read paperback. I use Audible. I use Kindle. So if I'm
Mm-hmm.
driving, I'll listen to a book while I'm driving or a podcast. But there's a couple of books that I've just read recently, and it helps. Maybe it's the stage of life where I'm at as I reflect. Okay, what have I accomplished over my years, and where am I going in the future? But as an individual, if you're not sure of why you're doing what you're doing and you haven't developed that passion, one book was written by Shannon Lee, which is Bruce Lee's daughter, Be Water, My Friend, and it talks about how Bruce Lee had utilized looking within yourself to define your life purpose and to how do you react to the situations that you're put in. If you can't control your external circumstances, which not many people can control what happens around them, how do you react to that situation that you had just encountered? That will develop your future progress based upon how you react to what you just experienced. And then the other one is Ikigai. Ikigai by Hector Garcia and Francois Morales. Uh, it it really helps an individual as you read the book to identify what makes you passionate,
Mm.
what what triggers your happy thought process, what triggers your negative response, and recognize those triggers will allow you then to be more successful moving forward and maybe circumventing events or trigger points that create anxiety or angst with you as an individual, but also know where's that spot that you can go mentally or physically that allows you to have a little bit of peace and time to reflect upon what am I doing? Why am I doing this? And what is the outcome that I expect out of where I'm at right now?
That's fan. I'm putting both of those on my list. I haven't read either one, so I'm gonna, especially the Bee Water, my friend. I have seen a number of her interviews. I think that'll be a really, really
Yeah.
interesting read. So
And also one book that you can look at it. I carry it with me wherever I go. It's a little bit tattered, worn. The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino.
yeah.
If you're in sales, this book has always given me a perspective. I've read it, as you can see, numerous times, and it gives me a perspective of sales philosophy. What is my approach towards people,
Hmm.
and how do I help provide solutions to their challenges that they're dealing with? I
Love it.
don't I don't sell a product, Mark. I sell a solution
Hmm.
to what challenge that individual is working with.
Perfect. What a great way to land it, Greg. Thanks for doing this interview, man. It's a lot of wealth in here for people to take home, and I appreciate you making the time.
Absolutely, Mark. Great to catch up with you again. Thank you.